Here's some background about the trip. Judy made the first 5 legs of the trip without John. From Aguascalientes to Seattle by plane. Time with daughter and her family and friends. From Seattle to Fargo by plane. Multiple class reunion there, 60 years for honored class. From Fargo to Minneapolis by rented car. There, the Goring family reunion and time with friends and Latham cousins. From Minneapolis to Kansas City by plane. Time with sister and family and friends. From Kansas City to Dallas by plane, then shuttle to Waco. Time with family who have migrated to Waco. From Waco to Aguascalientes in car with John. Home sweet home.
Okay, from the class of 58 all the way from Mexico comes Judy Snyder. Where are you, Judy?
I'm right here.
Come on up. She has something that she would like to read to you.
Good evening. Okay. I would like to read this. Actually, I created it for our reunion back in 1998. But I bet not one of you remembers it, and it's still very appropriate. I remember a small growing church in Spring Lake Park, Minnesota, suburbia of Minneapolis, a visit by the Oak Grove Choir and a young girl enthralled by the choir. I remember the ensuing months that dragged by as she eagerly waited her freshman year at Oak Grove. I remember my first days at Oak Grove, playing a piano solo at talent night while Warren Elness made the curtains dance and the audience laughed. And I had no idea why. I'm up there playing and he's making the curtains dance and everyone's laughing. I remember Mr. Hermansley, don't we all? I never really knew him, but he had my attention. And I certainly wouldn't have been found doing anything I shouldn't around him. I remember ice skating at the city rink on cool, crisp evenings. I remember friends. I remember working at Fanny Farmer with Chuck Krabenhoff. I couldn't eat a candy bar for years after acquiring a taste for fine chocolate. I remember walking to work after school at 25 below 0 degrees with the tears running frozen down my cheeks. I remember working out. That was scrubbing floors in someone else's home for money on a Saturday. I remember good friends. I remember music, being a poor saxophone player next to an excellent flute player who was John Yilbasacker. I remember lazy, lonely afternoons in the dorm, the only time I had all week long to miss my family. I also remember after-hour snack parties, sometimes held in our large closet with LaDonna and Anne. I remember getting caught too, and cleaning the attic to pay our dues. I remember Sadie Hawkins Day. I remember beautiful homecoming queens like our own Kathy Heskey and her beautiful attendants, Mary and Gloria. I remember music. Mr. Elness's choice of Bach and other greats, I've never regretted learning to love them. I remember the Snack Shack, and Bob, of course, and Nut Goodies and Friends. Spiritual Emphasis Week, always great Bible messages for renewing our spirits. I remember Miss Carrie Moen, who made a correction in the first competition I wrote at Oak Grove. One has really dark hair, not real dark hair, and I never forgot that. I remember great roommates, both in the dorm and on choir tour. I remember selling ads for the yearbook, but I wasn't very good at that. And of course, music. Solos, duets, trios, quartets, and of course the choir. I remember piano lessons with Miss Lobbin and practicing piano in the attic of the dorm, which some of us visited today. I remember ball games starring Nip and Tuck Liverson and other athletic greats, cheered on by Dick Hughesflone and later Podge and Jenny and Kathy and Chris. I remember music, talent night, class night, recitals, the Oak Grove Hour, talent, talent everywhere. I remember excellence was expected in everything we did. I remember great friends. I remember Miss Jackson, who taught us Bible truths and not to stand in the halls talking to boys. She called it making yourself accessible. She actually told me that personally. I remember church services at Vaunt and UFTA and LEFSA and Dorothy Waffelstead and her friends doing a playful dialogue in that strong Norwegian brogue. I didn't realize that when I returned 25 years later, everyone in Fargo would sound like that to me. Remember choir practice and breaking up into small groups to learn our parts? Miss Kleppe and studies of faraway places. I didn't know then that I'd lived 10 years in faraway Brazil and later retire in central Mexico. I remember special friends. I remember Mr. Elness, who commanded our deepest respect with never a word of reprimand. Choir tours, the concerts, the fun, the travel. The only time I was ever in Canada until we drove to Alaska in 1997. Civics class with Mr. Ringham, the military tough one, who was really a nice guy, even if he did call us girls by our last names, which I hated. I liked being Judy better than Gorin. I remember passing notes in class. Can you believe I still have some of them? Yes, Sandy Elvis, I do. Because some of them were from her. I remember Coach Peterson, who thought one of his football players or any of his athletic boys should concentrate more on football and chemistry than on girls. I remember Miss Consterly's patience with me in algebra class. Algebra was not my forte. And I remember peanut butter and pickle sandwiches, open-faced sandwiches for Sunday night supper in the dorm. I actually grew to like them, and I heard somebody else say the same thing today. I remember food from home, and my roommate's home. I remember going to Grafton with Carol Presting, my roommate. We actually made drapes for her mother's living room on one of those trips. I remember Skip Day, a day of casual relaxation with friends, the junior-senior banquet. We all looked so grown up in our formal wear. I remember the sadness of graduation and thinking, is it really over? I don't want it to be. Oh, the memories, but are they only memories? The staff, activities, the music, the friends? No. They are a force, an influence in my life every day of the 59 years I've been away. I carry it all with me. It's a heritage. It is me. Oh, excuse me, Miss Tweeten, it is I.
Wow, thank you so much, Miss Judy. That was great, and those are all of our memories, aren't they?
Exactly.
Every one of them. I didn't have peanut butter and pickles, though. I had other stuff in the closet with Judy Frank.
Before I leave this phase of my summertime journey, I want to give credit for the photos which I have included in this update. I took many of the casual photos myself, but a great many of them were taken either as stills by Rebecca or videos by Steve, who are both on staff at Oak Grove Lutheran School. Thanks so much for all your professional assistance at the reunion and for letting me borrow some of your great work. A special thanks to my fellow alumni for taking the time, effort, and resources to attend this special occasion. I just wish there had been more time to spend personally with you. In the words of my 9-year-old great-granddaughter, it was amazing. Ron is one of my cousins closest in age to me. I'm just a few months older than he. Ron took me to lunch in downtown Minneapolis. We had a great time enjoying the old milling district. See the old gold medal flower sign? And catching up on the many years we missed seeing each other. Thanks, Ron. Carlene. Carlene and I attended most of our grade school years at the same schools. I can't remember a time during those years that we weren't best friends. We attended the same church, were in the same Girl Scout group, and spent a lot of free time together. As we grow older, we found that we share so many of the same values, especially our relationship to Jesus. It was such a joy to spend a day and a half in the Pease home. Thank you, Carlene and Tom. Gary and Colleen. My cousin Gary, also very close to my age, and I grew up as good friends as well as cousins. I am thankful to get much better acquainted with his dear wife Colleen this trip. They offer great hospitality, a bed, good food, good fellowship, and provided an opportunity to visit with other cousins. One very strange thing about being at their house is that it is located very close to 3 other houses my family lived in. It was a strange feeling. Those houses are all so much closer together now than when I was growing up. Ha ha. Tom and Cindy. Tom is a first cousin of my late mother, Mildred. His mom was my mother's aunt, but they were as close as sisters, and our family spent a lot of time together. After many years of no contact with each other, Tom and I started communicating, mostly sharing old home movies. It was such a delight to visit him and Cindy, his wife. They also treated me to lunch with his brother Perry and sister Sue. Wow, that was great. I lived in the Minneapolis area for the first 15 years of my life and have so many great memories of the people, places, and events there. It was in Minneapolis in 1949 that I accepted Jesus as my personal Savior at a Billy Graham event. The Minneapolis area holds a big piece of my heart. Thanks to all the folks who read this and who helped make me so many precious memories there. Minneapolis, B. I was born in Minneapolis in Hennepin County in 1940. Our family moved away in 1955 when my parents entered missionary training with New Tribes Mission in Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania. There are a few friends here with whom I remain in contact and quite a few relatives who live in the Minneapolis area from both sides of my family, fraternal and maternal. One of my motives in making this journey was to attend the Goring-Milson family reunion. The date fell on the weekend following the Oak Grove High School reunion that I attended in Fargo. A warm and heartfelt thanks to our hosts, Faye, Gail, and Ron. Ron told me he didn't do much, and all their helpers. Thanks also to all of you who made the effort to come out for the reunion. I only wish I could have spent more time with each of you. Judy. My sister Jill. The primary reason for making Kansas City one of the places I wanted to visit on this trip was to visit my dear sister Jill. Jill and I are just 16 months apart in age and have always been good friends as well as sisters. Most of the time I was at her home this trip, we just hung out together and shared our joys and our sorrows, and lots of stories of days gone by. Jill is a widow, and I would like to just bring her home with me to Mexico, but she doesn't think she could stand being that far from her family. I also attended church with her a couple of times and enjoyed the fellowship with her faithful church family. I am so glad that she has them. Not all of her Kansas City family members could make it to the occasion, but she planned and executed a wonderful breakfast for us, with some great help from her daughter and granddaughter. Photos following on the next page. The Steakhouse Rendezvous. Having worked and lived in Kansas City, Kansas for so many years, from 1971 to 2003, friends abound there. It's always a frustrating experience to try to see as many as we can. We catch a few here and there. This time I concentrated on seeing some dear friends with whom I worked at City Hall. I got the idea of trying to catch a little time with them in a public place and chose La Fun's Frontier Steakhouse as a meeting place. Several that I contacted couldn't make it and sent their regrets, and I apologized to those I missed contacting. Several did show, though, and we had a great, though short time. There's always regret at those events that there wasn't more personal time with each one. Many thanks to those who came by. I enjoyed it immeasurably. It's so much fun when great co-workers are also great friends. Al. John and I met Al at an Arthur Murray studio in 1983. We haven't seen him much in years, but managed to keep up a little on all the family news and so forth through a rare phone call. Al was good enough to show me around to see some of the many changes in Kansas City that have taken place since we moved to Mexico. We ate at the lovely Webster House, where the food was delicious, but the dining room was pretty noisy. Thanks, Al, for this time of getting caught up on all the news. Oh, yes, and thanks for taking me to the airport also. John and I made our home in Kansas City, Kansas from the time we returned from Brazil in 1971 until we moved to Mexico to retire in 2003. We're really happy to be out of the humid climate in Kansas City, where the heat feels hotter and the cold feels colder. We do, however, have many fond remembrances of friends and family there. We both worked there for those many years and are grateful for the employment that we had during that time that has made it possible for us to make a home and live comfortably here in Aguascalientes, Mexico. To all of you who contributed such love and friendship to us through the time we lived in Kansas City, thank you so much, and we love you. This summer, our son Jim and his family sold their home in Lakewood, Colorado, and bought a home in Lorena, Texas, Waco area. They had just moved into their newly acquired home in July and were still in the process of getting settled. Their daughter, Amelia, and her family also moved down to Texas and are renting the upstairs of the huge house. I was eager to see Jim and his family and excited to get acquainted with their new place. My sister Joetta and her grown family also live in the Waco area, as well as my niece, Brenda, and her husband and son and daughter-in-law. Family get-together. My nephew Chad and his wife Ginger hosted a potluck-style dinner at their house. Chad moved to Waco several years ago. His parents and sister also, where he opened Katie's Custard. Eventually, others of his relatives moved there also. At this time, there's quite a gang when they all get together, and it looks as if more may move to Waco. We miss Travis and Stephanie, who weren't able to make it that evening. In all the years that we've driven back and forth to Mexico, I can't remember sharing photos of the journey from the border to our city. Now I realize it's so old hat to me that there are some things I should have photos of that I don't. Oh well, here's a little of what we see along the way. This is my sweet, smart great-granddaughter Elia. She loves to do interviews. On this summertime trip, I saw her in action doing a great job. I got her permission to use her photos to do the simulated interview. That's all, folks. A heartfelt thanks to any and all who have followed my 2017 summertime journey to Seattle, Fargo, Minneapolis, Kansas City, Waco, and back home to Mexico. This is my sweet, smart great-granddaughter Elia. She loves to do interviews. On this summertime trip, I saw her in action doing a great job. I got her permission to use her photos to do the simulated interview.